Donald Trump's running out of people to fire about his failed economy. If he didn't like the job numbers, wait till he hears this news that we're covering here Thursday morning. Trumponomics on Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. He's going to hate this news. The minutes from the meeting of the Federal Reserve Open Markets Committee. You know, in this case, it was about 12 people that get together to decide whether they're going to cut rates or not. They don't like the fact that inflation under Donald Trump is not only not at 2%, but it's heading to 4%. And probably for things that you need, likely it feels higher because it is higher. And so now the minutes of the meeting came out, in which it was 9-2 in favor of keeping rates right where they are at about 4.25% interest rates, banks charging other banks that rate. And then from there, your consumer loans, our credit card debt, our mortgages and student loans all get set off of that. 5 meetings in a row, 5 months in a row. Jay Powell, Federal Reserve, and the others on the Open Markets Committee. It's not just Jay Powell. I know that Jay Powell gets mercilessly bashed by Donald Trump as the central banker, but it's a vote of a majority. And it was 9-2, and the only 2 that voted against keeping the rates right where they were because of the fear of stagnant economy, a gross domestic product that is rolling backwards in retrograde, and joblessness and higher prices. We call that stagflation. The only 2 were Trumpers. And now that we've seen the minutes from the 29th and 30th of July, and now have the new data that's come out since then, they were right. They 8 and 9 in the majority. Jerome Powell, Jay Powell was right, and the Trumpers were wrong. I'll tell you why right here on Legal AF. Welcome to Thursday morning. Before they even saw, we have to put this in a sequence, in time sequence. Before the Open Markets Committee, which is comprised of the 7 members who are called governors, the 7 governors of the Federal Reserve, of which Lisa Cook, a Biden appointee, is one. Remember that name. I'm going to come back to Donald Trump's new attacks on Lisa Cook. It's the 7 governors plus the president of the Federal Reserve in New York, plus some other regional bank Federal Reserve members, and they all come together as the Open Markets Committee when they meet. And they decide whether rates are going up or down. Now, as I've said yesterday, Jay Powell is on his way with his team to Jackson Hole, Wyoming to meet with 40 other central bankers on Friday for a big speech. And everybody's waiting on pins and needles. But here's the hot take, the takeaway from this hot take. The 9 people, along with Jay Powell, who voted to keep interest rates right where they were, which many interpreted also as a middle finger to Donald Trump, were right because new data came out. Let's do the timeline. 28th, 29th, 30th, they meet. They decide not to change rates. The jobs report that led Donald Trump to lose his mind and lead to the firing of the chief economist, commissioner for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that came after. But the minutes show that they were worried as a majority committee about weak job numbers, the weakening of employment, the rising of prices, the fact that the tariffs had not fully been baked into pricing yet, that prices, consumer prices were going to go up. They did not have the wholesale price number out yet. That came a week later. That showed rising. It caught everybody by surprise except for us. Rising wholesale prices charged among businesses and within wholesalers, which ultimately lead to consumer price rises. Consumer price rises. And then the jobless report that came out minus 258,000 being removed from the job numbers. Their decision was done slightly in a vacuum without the benefit of that job data. And that's what they said. We need more data. We need more job numbers, wholesale price numbers, consumer price numbers, another round of numbers. We have to see how businesses are doing. We have to see what earnings look like, and then we can decide on the rates. Because right now, glaring and blinking red for them, radioactive red, is the fact that inflation is well above 2%, their target number, before they're going to cut rates. It's not only is it at 3.1%, and rising because rates, inflation has gone up 3.1% since last year while Donald Trump's been in office, making things worse, not better for the American public. But it's heading to 4%. How do I know that? because of the tariffs, not only the reciprocal tariffs, which are country by country, but what we call the sectoral tariffs, which is by sector: aluminum, copper, steel, different things that go into the manufacturing, automotive, medical, pharmaceutical. Those are sectoral tariffs. And Donald Trump just dropped a bomb 3 days ago. He suddenly said, no, I'm going to put a huge tariff on steel and aluminum. So everything that's shiny that's coming in just went up in price. And then the economists that don't work for Donald Trump, but the ones that we can rely on, like at Goldman Sachs and at Chase and at different major banks, they all said that tariff prices are going to end up being paid by the consumer. That 67 or 70% of tariffs are going to be passed on to consumer prices. Plain and simple. So now, how smart was the crystal ball for the 9-2 members, the majority members of the Federal Reserve Open Markets Committee, when Donald Trump blasted them for hating America and not lowering rates, when now the new data came in and it's worse than they even thought. Job numbers falling off a cliff. Real job numbers, not ones cooked and baked by Donald Trump. Wholesale prices, business to business prices, way up. Soon to hit the consumer. Consumer prices way up. Tariffs soon to be baked in. This is the data that they needed. And now Donald Trump knows that, so he can't fire Jay Powell because the United States Supreme Court says he can't. Otherwise, he would. But the Supreme Court said, in a case, you can't fire the Federal Reserve Chairman. That's the only reason he doesn't do it. But he's going to make his life miserable. Although Jay Powell's stronger than Donald Trump, and he's got more strength of character, and he's going to stay right where he is until May of 2026. So Donald Trump has to try to go after, I need a majority. And everybody's telling him, do the math. You don't have a majority. There's 9 people who are with Jay Powell. You only have 2 Trumpers. First time since 1993 that 2 people dissented from that July meeting I just told you about, who said, no, we should cut rates. They were totally wrong. They were like, oh, weak job numbers, fragile job numbers, more money, pump more money into the economy. No, idiots. We sort of saw a version of that during COVID. $3 trillion being pumped into the economy. Inflation way up. Everybody went crazy. Oh my God, egg prices. I get it. Yeah, they're worse now with Donald Trump. So the 9 were right. The 2 were wrong. The 2 trying out to be chairman of the Federal Reserve for Donald Trump, the 2 Trumpers, Waller and Bowman, they were wrong. They'll never admit they were wrong. I'm sure they're running around on MAGA financial news saying that they were right, but they were wrong. And Jay Powell was right. So Donald Trump's like, I got to get more votes. I only have 2. Well, somebody that just stepped down who was a Biden appointee can't take it anymore. Miss Klugler, she's off. She's going to be appointed. There's going to be a new person who has been appointed by Donald Trump. That gives him 3 votes. So now it's 8-3. All right, 8-3 still doesn't put Donald Trump in the driver's seat. So now we have to go after Lisa Cook. I started the hot take with Lisa Cook. Who's that? She's one of the 7 members of the Federal Reserve on the Board of Governors, runs everything. Super smart, super qualified. Biden put her in, and get this, her term doesn't expire until 2038. That was at 3038. 2038. That must be driving Donald Trump crazy. So what did he do? He pulled a Pulte. That's my new term for it. He pulled a Pulte. What's a Pulte? Okay, Pulte homes throughout the Southeast and other places? Well, they got a Nepo baby. And the Nepo baby, Bill Pulte, runs Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which service the mortgage market, help grease the skids for the mortgage market, and help securitize, put into packages to be sold as securities, mortgages, your mortgage, my mortgage, everybody's mortgage. And so he runs a pretty big company. It's worth about $500 billion if it went public. And they're trying to make it go public. But he's a mini Trumper. He wants to run for office. So he's been doing this pitch and catch with Pam Bondi of the Department of Justice. What's that, you say? Sure. He comes up with fake, fraudulent, criminal referrals about purported mortgage fraud. Oh, Adam Schiff, senator from California, he really lives in Maryland. He committed mortgage fraud because he's not owner occupying and he got a lower rate because he says he lives in Maryland. He does live in Maryland. He works in Washington, D.C. All the Constitution says is you have to be a resident of California or your state at the time of your election. He got elected already. He's got 5 more years before he stands for re-election. So what's the mortgage fraud? Letitia James, oh, she committed mortgage fraud. New York Attorney General, what's the mortgage fraud? Oh, she bought a couple of pieces of property and she had her father listed at her husband. Okay, how does that help him? Well, she says she owns a 4-unit multifamily in New York, and it's really a 5. No, if you look closely at the records, it's a 4, as recognized by the state of New York. This is the mortgage fraud. So he came up with another. Lisa Cook bought 2 pieces of property, one in Georgia and one somewhere else. And she's saying both are her primary residence and blah, blah, blah. This is criminal prosecution stuff. And Lisa Cook, Donald Trump just then jumped on that because this was all planned. It was all orchestrated. This little pitch and catch between him and Pam Bondi, like he did for Letitia James and he did for Senator Schiff, maybe President Schiff one day. And I've already done a whole hot take about why these people are primed to bring vindictive prosecution motions against the government based on the actions of people like this guy, Nepo Baby Pulte. So Lisa Cook fired back after Donald Trump said, she must resign. She committed fraud. I love this country that Donald Trump operates, or he thinks he operates, where people are presumed guilty until they're proven innocent and not the other way around. You'd think a guy who was convicted of 34 felony counts related to business fraud and other things, and his company was convicted of another 19 felony counts, and he's got a $500 million civil fraud judgment against him, you'd think he'd be a little bit more empathetic for somebody who people are charging with a fraud without any evidence. But no, because it's vindictive, because it's retribution, because it's violating the Department of Justice manual, it's violating our due process rights. And Lisa Cook fired back and said, I'm not going to be bullied out of my job at the Federal Reserve because of a tweet. I love that response. A tweet. I'm here. This is 2025. I got 13 more years left, and I ain't going anywhere. So if Donald Trump thinks the Cook seat, I want the Cook seat, and then it'll be 7-4. Yeah, it's not going to be 7-4 or 7-5. It's not going to get there. You're still outnumbered. So just sit back and let the independent Federal Reserve do its job as a central bank. We'll know more, and I'll report on it on Friday after the Jackson Hole speech. All that's going to be closely watched around I'm like biting my fingernails about what Jay Powell's going to say. He's going to try to bring this economy and this recession in for a landing and he's very sensitive to people listening to this speech on Friday. Come back here. Well, a couple of places. Legal AF YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the reminders, get these kind of videos, these long versions. And then I'm doing 2 live hot takes, live updates or briefings in real time at the moment, at the market on Legal AF Substack. Come over to Legal AF Substack. We got all the legal filings there. We got my lives. I do interviews there as well. And hit the button for subscription. And if you can swing it, I think it's $7 or $8 a month, hit the paid subscriber button. And now we're cooking with gas, right? Now we're cooking. Not Lisa cooking, but we're cooking with gas. And we've got the money to run the network, to run the channel, to bring in all these great contributors. I just did interviews yesterday that are up today of the American Civil Liberties Union, of two of the most powerful attorneys general in America. This is what you want to see, I believe. And this is the way you can help us. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states. states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.